The dead don't knock. But someone did. And when I opened the door, I saw my grandson, the same one we buried 3 days ago, standing on my porch, barefoot, pale, and whispering my name. I couldn't move. My legs froze. I had seen death before. I had buried my husband, my sister, my son. But never did I expect death to return what it took away. His name was Eli. He was 8. Died in a car crash with his mother-me daughter-in-law. My son Daniel survived, barely. I held his hand in the hospital as he wept in silence, his eyes vacant, his body trembling like a leaf in a storm. 3 days ago, we held the funeral. We dressed Eli in his favorite blue sweater with the little rocket ship on the chest. I remember smoothing his hair one last time and whispering, "Grandma loves you, baby." And yet, there he was, on my front steps. "Grandma," he said again, softer this time. "Can I come in? I'm cold." I opened the door wider, without thinking. My hands didn't feel like mine. They were weightless, floating. Or maybe it was my mind that detached, drifting away from the unbearable. He stepped inside. His little feet made no sound on the old hardwood floor. The smell hit me first, faint, sweet, like gardenias mixed with earth. The kind of smell you might expect from flowers left too long on a grave. "Eli," I whispered. "Is it really you?" He nodded, but there was something in his eyes. Something too still. "I missed you," he said, looking up at me with those soft brown eyes. "I wanted to come home." I reached out, almost afraid he'd disappear if I touched him. My fingers brushed his cheek ice cold. My stomach turned. That wasn't how warm, living skin felt. But I didn't pull away. I couldn't. Because grief is greedy. It takes whatever scraps the universe throws back. I made him hot chocolate. He sat on the couch, legs curled under him like he always used to. The same posture. The same small smile. And yet, he didn't blink. Not once. I handed him the mug. He stared at it, then placed it gently on the table without drinking. "Are you hungry?" I asked, masking the fear in my voice. "No," he said. "I already ate." He looked at me then, long and slow. "But I think he is." I didn't understand. "Who, baby?" "The boy who helped me come back." The clock ticked like a drum in a funeral march. I tried to stay composed. I tried to believe this was a dream, a delusion, the way grief plays tricks on the mind. But the hot cocoa was real. The wet footprints on the floor were real. And my fear that was the realest of all. "Where is he now?" I asked gently. Eli turned his head toward the hallway. Hiding. I didn't want to look. But I did. The hallway stretched dark and narrow toward the guest room. It had always creaked, always felt a little colder than the rest of the house. That night, it felt like a tunnel straight into something wrong. "Why is he hiding?" I asked. "Because he's not supposed to be here," Eli said, and now his voice had changed, flatter, older, almost detached. "But I told him I missed you. I told him you'd want me back." A chill ran down my spine. Is he a boy like you?" Eli shook his head. "He was never like me. Not really. He wears faces like clothes. But he needed mine. He needed someone you'd let in." Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. "You're not Eli," I whispered. And that's when he smiled. Not a child's smile. A smile stretched too wide, too slow, too practiced, like someone rehearsing how humans show joy, but never quite getting it right. "I wanted to see if you'd notice," he said. "You almost didn't." I stumbled back. The mug crashed to the floor. "I didn't care." "I want you to leave," I said. "Now." He rose slowly, his movements no longer childlike. He stood too tall, too stiff. His head tilted, not in curiosity, but like he was listening to something behind the walls. "Grandma," he said, voice cracking like dry leaves. "He's already inside." I didn't sleep that night. I locked myself in my room. I turned on every light. I clutched the rosary my mother gave me in 1967 when my father died in Vietnam. I whispered prayers I hadn't said in decades. But none of them felt like they reached anything holy. At 3:06 a.m., I heard footsteps in the attic. Heavy ones. I hadn't been up there in years. Not since George and me husband fell from the ladder and broke his hip trying to retrieve the Christmas decorations. After that, I sealed it off. The steps stopped. Then scratching. Long, deep, deliberate scratches. By morning, the lights had flickered twice. My cell phone was dead. The landline only hissed static. The hallway smelled of smoke, though nothing had burned. And Eli, or whatever wore his skin, was gone. But I knew he wasn't far. I spent the next day packing. I didn't care where I was going. A motel. a church, anywhere but here. But when I opened the front door, my car was gone. Not stolen, just gone, like it had never existed. No tire marks, no oil stains, no gravel disturbed. The mailbox was filled with dirt, and on the porch lay Eli's blue sweater, the one he was buried in. Still folded, still warm. I picked it up, hands shaking. Inside the pocket was a note. Child's handwriting. Bring him back. I didn't sleep for a second night. It wasn't the fear of what I'd seen. It was the fear of what I hadn't. The silence in the house was worse than any scream. The emptiness made every room feel like it was holding its breath. That morning, I tried to call Daniel's son, Eli's father, but the phone line still didn't work. Even my old transistor radio only played one thing on every station, a soft, looping lullaby. A melody I vaguely remembered singing to Eli when he was a baby. Something was rewriting my house, warping it, and me along with it. I took the sweater inside. I didn't want to, but I couldn't leave it on the porch like trash. The note in the pocket still haunted me. Bring him back. Bring who back? Eli? Or something else? Around noon, I heard humming. A child's voice. It was coming from the laundry room. The door was cracked open just enough to see movement. Small shadows flitting back and forth like someone was pacing slowly inside. I held my breath and stepped closer. Eli, I called out, voice trembling. No answer. Just the humming. That same lullaby, looping over and over like a broken music box. I pushed the door open. Nothing. The room was empty. But the humming continued, now coming from behind the dryer. I crouched down. My knees cracked. My heart pounded. And then, a hand reached out. Small, pale, bruised. Help me, the voice whispered. I didn't mean to stay. I screamed. Not out of terror, but because it wasn't Eli's voice anymore. It was mine. I backed away, slamming the door. I wedged a chair under the handle, then collapsed against the wall. That was when I finally understood. This wasn't about Eli. It wasn't even about death. It was about memory, about grief, about something feeding on the pieces of me that were breaking. I didn't know what had come through my door pretending to be my grandson, but I knew what it wanted now. It wanted to become him. And to do that, it needed me. My love, my sorrow, my memories. That's why it used his voice, his face, his sweater. My emotions were the bridge. And the more I gave Idovan in fear, the more real it became. I opened the old trunk in the attic. George's shotgun was still there, wrapped in the flannel shirt he always wore on Sunday mornings. I loaded it. I was done being afraid. I moved through the house like a soldier, one footstep at a time. Every corner, every hallway, nothing, until I reached the guest room. The door was open, wide, as if waiting for me. Inside, the bed was perfectly made. The blinds were drawn. Sunlight filtered in through thin cracks, painting sharp lines on the floor. And sitting on the edge of the bed was Eli. No, the thing wearing Eli's shape. It smiled. You're not scared anymore, it said. Good. That makes it easier. I raised the gun. Get out of my house. You invited me. You're not him, I said. You're not my grandson. It tilted its head. But I could be. Just let me stay a little longer. Let me remember him with you. I cocked the shotgun. My fingers were steady now. I said leave. Its expression changed. Gone was the smile. The eyes narrowed into something older, crueler. You'll be alone again, it said. I've been alone before. You'll forget him. I lowered the gun, just slightly. It saw its opening. You'll forget the way his laugh echoed in the kitchen. The way he held your hand when he was scared. The way he called you Grandma, with 2 M's. You'll forget the exact sound of his footsteps running down the hallway at night. You'll forget what his voice sounded like when he said I love you. Tears welled in my eyes. That's what I'm here for, it said, voice softening into something heartbreaking. To help you remember. I couldn't shoot. Not because I believed it, but because part of me wanted to. That's what grief does. It doesn't just steal joy. It erodes judgment. It turns hope into a weapon. I collapsed to my knees. I want him back, I whispered. And in that moment, it stepped forward. Not walking. Not floating. Just blinking closer. Right to my face. It cupped my cheek with its cold, child-sized hand. You can have him, it said. Just let me stay. My mind screamed no. But my heart cracked open. And then I remembered something. Something my real Eli said once when he was 6. Grandma, he told me while drawing dinosaurs at the kitchen table, if something pretends to be me, don't believe it. I'll always tell you the secret word. I'd laughed at the time. What's the word, baby? He leaned close and whispered, moonberry. A word we made up together. Our own made-up fruit. Our own silly code. Say the word. I said now, staring into this thing's empty eyes. Say the secret word, Eli. It blinked, then smiled again. But it didn't answer. I raised the shotgun. This time I fired. The sound shattered the air like a thunderclap. The thing screamed, not in pain, but in fury. Its form rippled like boiling water. The skin melted. The voice shattered into a dozen pitches, each one whispering my name, pleading, begging, threatening. I ran. Smoke filled the hallway. Walls bent. The wallpaper peeled backward like skin. Every light exploded one by one. And then, silence. I woke up hours later in the front yard. The house behind me was gone. Not burned. Just vanished. All that remained was Eli's sweater. Still folded. Still warm. The police found me. Called it a breakdown. Said I'd been wandering the street with a shotgun and an old sweater clutched to my chest. Said my house must have caught fire and collapsed completely. A gas leak, maybe. But I know better. And now I wait. Because last night, I heard something at the new apartment. A knock. 3 soft knocks. I didn't open the door. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw him. Eli. Smiling. Holding a note. Just 3 words. Moonberry was wrong. I didn't sleep. Again. I sat in the dark, alone on the couch, with every light in the apartment on. The sweater lay folded beside me, like a wound that never closed. I kept looking at the door, at the peephole, hoping that somehow, the face I saw last night was just a cruel illusion, a trick of the light. But I knew better. Moonberry was wrong. That's what the note said. And only one thing could have known that word. Me. Or Eli. But Eli was dead. And the thing that came to my house wasn't him. So how did it know? The next morning, I went to the cemetery. Not for answers. For truth. I needed to see. I needed to know. I needed something real. Eli's grave was at the far end, under the oldest oak tree, the one that cracked the earth with roots as thick as bones. I brought flowers. Sunflowers. His favorite. As I knelt to place them by the headstone, I saw it. Fresh dirt. Disrupted. Like something had clawed up or out from beneath. My hands shook. I brushed the earth away. And that's when I saw it. A small hole, barely wider than my wrist. Leading down, deep, like a tunnel bored by desperate hands. Inside, wedged into the loose dirt, was something soft and familiar. A rocket. A small, red plastic rocket. The one from Eli's nightstand. The one I had buried with him. I staggered back, fell onto the grass. A voice in my head screamed, "He's still alive," but I didn't believe it. Not fully. No part of this world worked like that anymore. Not after what I'd seen. But it meant one thing for sure. Someone or something had been in his grave. And they'd taken something with them. Or left something behind. I went to the only person who might believe me. Reverend Harris. He'd known me for 40 years. Married me and George. Baptized Daniel. He even held Eli when he was a baby. He listened. He didn't laugh. He didn't call me crazy. When I finished telling him everything, the knocking, the sweater, the voice, the shotgun, he simply nodded. "I believe you," he said. Those 3 words nearly undid me. He brought me into the back room of the church, the one no one goes into anymore. Not since the roof leaked and the ceiling paint began peeling like skin. There was a box. Old, wooden, covered in dust. He opened it. Inside were books. No titles on the spines. No publishers. Just leather-bound covers and pages that smelled like time itself. He opened one to a marked page. "There's a name for what you saw," he said. "Or at least, for what it pretends to be." He turned the book so I could read. "Mimi Curse of Grief." Beneath it, in smaller script. "Beings drawn to the emotional residue of loss. They do not consume flesh. They consume memory, identity, and love. They were the faces of the dead. They do not lie. They simply become." He told me stories. Of other people. From other towns. Different names. Same events. A mother who saw her daughter standing in her bedroom window a week after the funeral. A widower who heard his wife's laughter echoing through the baby monitor. A man who found his brother alive in a diner halfway across the country, smiling like nothing had ever happened. Every one of them ended the same way. The living forgot. They forgot the real voice, the real face, the real moments. Because the mimicry replaced them, bit by bit. It feeds on nostalgia, on grief, on need. And once it has enough, it is permanent. It becomes them in your mind. Forever. I shot it, I told Reverend Harris. Back at the house. He nodded. And that delayed it, but didn't destroy it. So what do? He closed the book gently. You fight to remember the real Eli. Every second, every detail. Because if you forget, even for a moment, he tapped the book. It takes his place. Forever. I stared at him. That's it. Just hold on to my memories. He hesitated. There's one more thing, he said. He gave me a candle. Black wax. No scent. Thick and cold like stone. You light this, he said, when it returns. It won't stop it, but it'll show you what's real. Show me. He met my eyes. It wears faces, Martha. But light this light reveals truth. I held it in both hands, the weight heavier than it looked. And what if I see something I don't want to see? He didn't answer, because we both already knew. It came back that night. I was asleep on the couch, dreaming of Eli's laugh. That wild, open joy he had when he chased pigeons in the park. I was smiling in my sleep. Then came the whisper. Grandma. I sat up. He was standing in the kitchen, bathed in soft yellow light, holding the rocket, the same red plastic one from the grave. It got dirty, he said. I cleaned it for you. He held it out. I took the candle, lit it with trembling hands, and the room changed. The boy's skin darkened not in color, but in texture. Cracked, dry, like burned wood. His smile faded into a gash. His eyes lost their shape. They became pits. Not empty, but bottomless. And behind him, for just a second, I saw them. Dozens. No. Hundreds. Faces. All watching. All mimicking. All trying to learn how to be loved. One more George's face. One more mine. I nearly dropped the candle. But I held steady. Give him back, I said, teeth clenched. The thing tilted its head. I'm the only Eli left, it whispered. No. You're what came after. It smiled not cruelly. Almost sadly. I only exist because you couldn't let go. I raised the candle higher. I'm letting go now. It screamed. The walls cracked. The ceiling bulged like lungs ready to burst. The faces behind it shrieked and writhed. And in a flash they vanished. Darkness swallowed the room. And I was alone. Truly, completely alone. The rocket lay on the floor. Just plastic now. I picked it up, sat in silence, and remembered the last time I'd seen him, alive. How he'd asked me if the moon had strawberries. I told him no. But it should, he said. If I go there, I'll plant some. Moonberries. Just for us. I smiled through tears. Moonberry, I whispered. You're still mine. And in that moment, for the first time in weeks, the house felt quiet, but not empty. Peaceful. 3 weeks passed. The apartment was still. The lights no longer flickered. The nightmares came less often, and when they didn't carry his voice anymore. But peace wasn't comfort. Peace was silence. And silence is where the real mourning begins. I went through old photo albums every night. I touched every picture of Eli with the tips of my fingers, whispering dates and stories and little details so I wouldn't forget. Because now I knew forgetting wasn't just grief. It was feeding something. I tried to rebuild life. In little ways. Grocery shopping at 10 a.m. when it was quietest. Sitting in the park, even though the sound of children playing made my heart twist. Answering Daniel's calls again, though our conversations were clumsy and short. He was still too deep in his own grief. And I no longer had the words to carry both of ours. I didn't tell him about what happened. I couldn't. How do you say? Something wore your son's face and tried to replace him, and I almost let it? No parent should carry that burden. No mother should pass it on to her child. One morning, as I was folding laundry, I found something strange wedged in the dryer's filter. A drawing. Child's crayon lines on a scrap of notebook paper. A rocket, colored red, flying toward a gray moon. Beside it were 2 stick figures holding hands. One was labeled me. The other, in shaky letters, Grandma. My knees gave out. I slid to the floor, holding the picture like a lifeline. Where had this come from? I burned that sweater. I threw away everything after that night. There was nothing left. Except this. I turned the page over. Scrawled in the corner were 2 words. Remember me. I called Reverend Harris that night. His line rang 6 times before he picked up, voice hoarse. I didn't want to bother you, I said, but something's not right. There was a pause on his end. Then, I know. He told me I wasn't the only one. In the past week, for more parishioners had come to him with stories. A brother returned after 15 years missing. A mother who heard her stillborn baby crying in the crib. A husband who watched his late wife cook breakfast like she'd never died. The candle only delays it, he told me. They find cracks in the soul. And grief. Grief is a canyon. So what do we do? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, we go back. It was after midnight when I met him at the church. He looked older than I remembered. Frilier, as if carrying other people's pain had taken root in his bones. We didn't speak much. He brought the books, the candle, and a mirror, long and narrow, framed in black ash wood. We drove back to where my house once stood. Now, there was only flat earth. No grass, no construction, just untouched soil, as if the house had never been there to begin with. But I remembered. Every brick, every step. I stood at the spot where the living room had been, where Eli once ran in circles with a blanket around his shoulders pretending to be a superhero. And I lit the candle. The ground trembled. Not violently, not like an earthquake, but like something beneath had stirred. The wind stopped. The air thinned. Then silence shattered. Voices rose from the earth. Hundreds of them. Soft, overlapping, whispering fragments of names, lullabies, and cries. They weren't speaking to me. They were speaking through me. The candle flickered once, then went black. And then we saw it. The house returned. Not built, revealed. Like it had never left. Not the real house. A version of it. Familiar but wrong. The windows were too wide. The door crooked. The walls breathed slowly, like lungs. Inside, lights glowed. And at the center, behind the front window, stood Eli. No older. No colder. Just waiting. Reverend Harris stepped forward, holding the mirror. The only way to end this, he said, is to make it choose. Choose what? Truth or form? He handed me the mirror. I walked toward the house. With every step, the whispers grew louder. Eli's voice rose among them, calling my name, laughing, singing softly. Grandma, come inside. I opened the door. The room was empty, but everything was exactly how it had been years ago. The same pictures on the wall. The smell of cinnamon. George's old recliner. Eli's drawings taped to the fridge. And in the middle, Eli. He looked up from a book. Smiled. Like nothing had happened. Like we'd never buried him. Grandma, you came. He ran to hug me. But I stepped back. Held up the mirror. Say the word, I told him. He blinked. Moonberry, he whispered. But the mirror shimmered. And in its reflection, he was gone. Standing in his place was a faceless thing, made of mist and bone and smoke. It screamed. Not in pain. In rage. You don't want the truth, it howled. You want comfort. And maybe I did. But not this way. I raised the candle again. I want him. Not you. The house cracked. The floor split open. Walls caved in. And the thing lunged. I threw the candle. Fire erupted white and cold, swallowing everything in light. I screamed Eli's name. Once. Twice. Then silence. I woke up in the grass. The sun was rising. Reverend Harris knelt beside me. The house was gone again. Truly this time. Nothing remained. Except the mirror. Still upright in the soil. And on its surface. Just me. Alone. It's been a year now. Sometimes I think I hear Eli's voice on the wind. But I don't turn around anymore. Not because I don't miss him. But because I do. And I won't feed that thing again. I planted a tree where the house once stood. A moonberry tree. It doesn't bear fruit, not real fruit. But it blooms every spring. And every time I sit beneath it, I remember the real Eli. His laugh. His freckles. His wild, brave heart. And that's enough. It has to be. Because love is memory. And memory, when held true, is stronger than anything that pretends.